Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it, a busy Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Good stuff today we'll get into from quarterback Adrian Martinez, Luke McCaffrey, Ryan Held, man. The engine that is going to be the Nebraska offense will be that running game, powered by the offensive line. And how about Super Mario, man? Mario Verduzco. So we'll hear from all of those folks. Brandon Vogel is 20 minutes away from HailVarsity.com and magazine. Gary Barnett next hour. And then Jay Moore, some thoughts on the defensive line, the necessity for competition. And Jay will weigh in on some NFL thoughts. You can join us. And we invite you to do so. 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Those are the numbers to get in. You can find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence is where you find Elijah Herbal on Twitter, and can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. So plenty of things discussed with the quarterback competition. Some of the offseason, navigating COVID, and some special running backs that some guys are new and some guys learned what it's like to play in the Big Ten. So all of it will be covered. And just a few thoughts here to open up here with Scott Frost and his sit-down last night with the network. Listen, we're 2 weeks away, man, and it feels like it's been 80 weeks. I get that. But color me excited. I'm smiling that, yeah, it is 2 weeks away. God forbid anything happens. Knocking twice on wood right there. But you know what? It's going to be time to roll up the sleeves and see where things are at against Ohio State. But one thing that I've noticed, and I think Nebraska fans have noticed here as we go into year 3 with Nebraska football, is the reality that I think Nebraska has stayed quiet. They've been quiet this offseason, aside from, hey, dude, we need to play football. That was worth being loud about, and they helped push that forward. But as far as the hype, I mean, think about Scott Frost in his time at Nebraska, just how quirky and weird and uncharacteristic it's been. All right, from game 1 to season 1 to season 2 and the hype, and now folks are just kind of wait-and-see mode on Nebraska nationally. I get that. And folks locally within the great state of Nebraska, you think they can be okay, but you want to see it, right? Before you're just, here's my money, let's buy that stock. And you know how difficult the schedule is specifically to start out. I'm excited about them going up early on against some of the best of the Big Ten, because why not get somebody early rather than get them when they round into form? But Nebraska has had a quiet confidence. Nebraska's been humbled a little bit, and there's not been a lot of talking. And I think with head coach Frost and his staff and this team, they're ready to let their actions do a lot of their talking this season, and they'll let you judge the volume on that. How do they come out against Ohio State? What level of competition? How competitive is that game? Is it 2018 versus Ohio State where it's a nail-biter? Is it 2019 where the national stage and game days here, and you had a national championship caliber Ohio State team come in here and just dismantle Nebraska? No shame in that, because Ohio State did it to a lot of teams last year. So you have a quiet confidence this year with Nebraska, and there's just not been much hype of some of the newcomers, right? I mean, even the young pups, there's not been a lot of extra accolades thrown on their shoulder pads, and I think that's okay. And I think the case in point, right, is Adrian Martinez. He's example number one of well-deserved accolades after a freshman season, right, where he was as good as any freshman in the country, did really well and navigated things. It was a real bright spot, especially for him to come in and take that job like he did. But then you go to year 2 and you get the pats on the back, and we all love pats on the back. We all love praise. But do you get comfortable when that happens? It's human nature, right? So Nebraska's been a bit more reserved, at least openly and outwardly, when talking about folks. I mean, you're going to hear some of the names. You're going to hear about Ben Stille, who's a grizzled veteran. You're going to hear about some of the JUCO guys, and you're going to hear about Omar Manning. All those names and that staple of guys that are your fifth-year seniors, specifically on some of that offensive line. When you look at Hymas and Afarniak, I mean, those are the guys you're probably going to hear from and you're going to hear about. But as far as the praise, the double helping of, man, this kid's going to be special, some guys just aren't ready for that. And I'm not speaking specifically at all to anyone at Nebraska. I'm just saying it can just add too many ingredients to this cookout you're trying to do.
See, my question when relating to the hype is for the Husker fans, was the hype for this season derailed after the disappointment of last season? Because there was so much hype within the state for that team last year, Frost in year 2. Or was it derailed by the Big Ten's decision at the beginning of August? Because that really just was, demoralizing, that whole thing. So
you just were unsure. You didn't want to get your hopes up and then get your heart broken.
So, if we keep progressing towards a season, will we have an even faster building hype train for the next 2 weeks before the game, or has it just been derailed for this season permanently? I
don't think the hype's derailed. I think there's just a healthy dose of uncertainty because it is literally week to week. Great, there's 8 games plus 1 scheduled. You hope to get them all in. You've already seen some postponements around some of the major colleges. You've seen Notre Dame come down with COVID. So there's the health and pandemic aspect you got to deal with and jack with anyway. From a safety standpoint, you fought to come back and play, but I think you look at the uncertainty of the pandemic where it could be taken away through no fault of your own, and then I also think the balloon that burst, and I can't get into what was filled in that balloon with the strength of schedule. Okay. In some corners, they're like, oh, damn, this is how you open. There's no build up to maybe be peaking. You got to come out of the gates ready to go. So I think both of those factors may have pumped the brakes on top of how high your expectations were last year with all the national pats on the back, and then how the season really played out, where you just under-delivered. And I, looking back at last season, it really kind of started that second half of the Colorado game. I think that affected this football team moving forward. You find a way to win that Colorado game, or you knock them out with a touchdown and a field goal where that lead truly is insurmountable, right? Maybe this season goes a lot different a year ago. So I think there's just some skepticism, which is healthy, but I think there's a real mentality here with this football team about wanting to go out and prove it and let what they do on the field be their voice versus the talking and some of the specifics the first 2 years. And I think that's all right. Let's hear from Adrian Martinez as he was featured. We'll hear some more from Luke McCaffrey as well. And first part I want to get into is the wide receivers. And this was the first question out of the gate with the Zoom meeting. And it's worth knowing, right? Where is Adrian at? Where's the receivers at? How's that gelling process going? Because you've got a lot of different names. You still have Wandale, you still have Cade Warner, but there's some genuine excitement for some of these new faces that can add to this wide receiving core and make this offense as potent as you think it can be. On top of the fact you got Matt Lubick in here that's really done fantastic work in a short amount of time in a quirky offseason. You got all of those elements swirling around, and here's Adrian on that gelling process.
Those guys have really done a great job of attacking each practice, as well as I think our communication has just been a lot better, and Coach Lubick's done a great job. I've seen a lot out of those guys, and we're excited about them. I think we're continuing to get better, and we will continue to do that moving forward.
You know, Adrian was asked about his mental health just specifically, not, I shouldn't say specifically his, but just the topic of mental health. And Huskers.com put out a pretty heartfelt look-see into the ups and downs of a college athlete. Dedrick Mills opened himself up, was it a week ago or so?
About, yeah.
Where he just said, look, man, this is how life is going. This is life as a college athlete. This is life as a guy that has battled some issues and got booted from Georgia Tech. And look how he's turned himself around and hunkered down. And he was very thankful to the psychologists that are on staff at Nebraska. That's real. That's real in life. That's real in those folks that put in the 8 to 5. And it's thankfully being recognized. Dak Prescott's come out with it, obviously, with him and his family. It is something that you do need people to talk to, whether you're venting or the reality of the pressures and having to live up. I mean, there's a lot of weight on shoulders, specifically college kids that are just there to get an education and play some football, right? And Nebraska is no different, and this football team's no different than a lot of other kids around the U.S. and the world when it comes to this pedestal they're placed on, and how do you deal with the pressures of that? Adrian spent a little bit of time discussing just the importance of mental health, and think about him, man. He's a guy that again, had a great freshman year, was dinged last year, tried to gut through it. He wants to reassess and come out and have just an incredible third year. And there's a lot of folks cheering for him. But when you don't play awesome all the time, you are going to get hammered by some. Some folks will be understanding. I pray that many are more supportive through the bad and don't ditch a guy if he's not always good. That isn't reality, unfortunately. So here's Adrian on that mental health aspect and dealing with this competition, COVID, and just being in this spotlight as a quarterback at Nebraska.
I think it's definitely not talked about enough, especially in college sports. Obviously, we're amateur athletes, but we also have a pretty big stage similar to professional sports. And I would say that's something I'm just thankful to be a part of Nebraska. We have a great support system here, and our coaching staff, Dr. Brett Haskell, she works with players kind of on the psychology piece. We have a great staff, and I'm really just thankful that I chose to come here, that I chose to be a part of this community. And I think despite everything that happened last year, I've received nothing but support from the people here in this building.
Adrian's a tough dude. He has had parts of his life where he has had to be so strong, and he is showing that again. I mean, Adrian Martinez is a guy that knows a lot about perseverance, and I don't doubt that he'll continue to persevere through the good, and if there are some down times, and he's anxious to battle back and play some football. When it comes to how things have been going on the field, this is Adrian about his practice performance as he spoke about that a little bit earlier today.
I feel like I've been doing good. I'm just trying to get better at doing what the coaches are asking me to do, continuing to execute, continuing to make quick decisions, and get the ball where it needs to be. I think there's always something I can improve on, and I've been really trying to do that this fall camp and each day, really.
Let's talk about young guys that have had a lot of responsibility thrust on them. Not just Adrian Martinez, but also Adrian was asked about, Cam Jurgens, how he navigated through some ups and downs early last year to really round into an uber talented, super athletic, just road grader that. Man, he can be very special at center, and you saw him get better. Adrian spent some time on Jurgens and also the rest of that offensive line. Again, that is your key for 2020 for Nebraska.
I can relate to him in that way. His first couple games, obviously there's going to be some adjustments. There's going to be some bumps and some learning curves, and we all made mistakes. I think as the year progressed, he was taking some tremendous strides, and this year, obviously, I'm really confident in him. And in our O-line in general, I think those guys are studs up front. And I know for sure that myself, Luke, and the rest of the quarterbacks, we're confident in those guys with everything we have.
Last thought here from Adrian. We'll hear from Luke McCaffrey. Here, Brandon Vogel's coming up next. the topic of Luke McCaffrey, and Mitch Sherman asked this about maybe having more of McCaffrey sprinkled in to some of the offense, and Adrian's right about that isn't his call, but you know what, maybe another weapon could be a good thing for this offense.
Look, that's not my decision, but Luke is a very talented player. I know he can be great for us at quarterback, running back, receiver, whatever the coaches decide they want to do, that's what we're going to do. And if that's going to help us win games, I'm for it.
Do we have time for the preparation? Got 11? Yeah, okay. Adrian was asked to end his media session just how he has reassessed some of his prep work in the offseason.
I would say I'm just trying to work harder physically, get myself in the shape I know I need to be in. And in addition to that, I'm trying to take each day and make the most out of it. Try and live in the present, try and make the most out of that practice and not kind of looking forward to 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now. And if that means diving into practice tape more, working on my game as much as I can, really trying to do what the coaches are asking of me. And all of that just is around self-improvement, trying to become a better leader. I think the little things are where I can become a lot better.
It's Adrian Martinez, Brandon Vogel coming up. Plenty of Husker football to get with. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio lesson?
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
We'll have thoughts from Luke McCaffrey coming up. Also an update on the Husker bubble, who's coming to town. How about them Cowboys? Gary Barnett, Jay Moore next hour. Brandon Vogel's with us, managing editor, HailVarsity.com and magazine. And you find him on Twitter at Brandon L. Vogel. Read his book. Get his book. It's a nice week of weather in the state of Nebraska. Sit outside, flip through the pages, dream like a champion. With Brandon Vogel and John Cook. We say hi to Vogues. Vogues, how good was it to see Mario Verduzco on a Zoom call? Was that an ascot or a gator he was wearing?
Why not both? When you're Mario and you show up and you're full, go with the full sunglass look. It felt pretty good to see Coach Verduzco. It's felt good to see all of those guys because we know what this regular availability, I guess, means. It means there'll be football at some point in the near future. But you know, Mario always brings a little bit extra, and that was certainly true today.
All that was missing was a cat on his lap for him to pet while questions were hurled at him. He's awesome, man. It was good to hear from him, and there's a lot of topics to get into from young pups to JUCO additions to the quarterback as we're 2 weeks out. But what's your gauge been? And Elijah and I started out with this. It just seems like Nebraska, A, has some quiet confidence. That's my read. But B, there's been an emphasis on, you know what, they want to let their work on the field maybe be their voice versus just the last 2 years of some hype. First year, obviously, the excitement about Frost being back. Second year, everyone's picking Nebraska as a dark horse and a dark horse Heisman guy in Adrian. And it's tough to have that target on their back. Nebraska's learned some lessons. And I don't think Nebraska was boisterous. I mean, they've always been confident. That said, they're just kind of keeping their head down and working. Do you get that same feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that they feel pretty good. This is all reading between the lines, so your mileage may vary, but it sounds like we're on the same page here. You know, I think they feel pretty good about how this team has kind of come together and some of the intangible things that are pretty hard to talk about when you don't have any games to kind of show your work. But I think they feel good about just the team that has formed, you know, much less before you get into personnel, talent, all of that stuff. But you've definitely seen on multiple occasions, one last week, one this week, that I think Coach Frost has been especially careful when the question comes up, hey, how do you feel? How do you feel about these? About your guys, everything that's gone on, he's been really careful to avoid saying, and you know, he even called it out explicitly, saying, hey, I don't want to say too much, or I don't want to say that, yeah, we feel good, just because they've been burned. And a lot of that, I think, was due to last year. A lot of that is not Frost or really any football coach's fault. It's pretty rare for a coach to go out and say, yeah, we're going to be great, and if we're not, something went massively wrong. But everyone got a little bit swept up, I think, in how Nebraska closed the 2018 season and what that could mean for 2019. So you definitely sense a little bit of hesitance this time around.
Brandon, whenever you look at those 2019 results, do you think that the preseason expectations that were on the Huskers got to a young team and the pressure got to them? And then along with that, do you think that there will be less pressure on this team going into 2020?
I think there is less pressure on the 2020 team. I don't know if the pressure got to that 2019 group so much, as they were just pretty young in some key spots, particularly on the offensive line. That's kind of been one of the through lines, I think, for whatever we're calling this lead up to a late October start. I guess it truly is fall camp because it's happening in fall now. But the praise for that offensive line, and that offensive line should be good. It's an experienced group. You knew that from the moment last season ended. And if you've got some young guys who are truly capable of beating out some guys that have played quite a bit of football, or at least making it close enough to where you're going to give a redshirt freshman the call, that says some good things. So if you can be strong up front, I kind of look to Nebraska with what they have returning. They were really heavy run last year. But I think if they're going to have some success and find some success in 2020, it's going to be as a ground-based team. And if everyone stays healthy, which is, the thing you can never take for granted in football in general, they got some really intriguing pieces to do that when you look at that offensive line as kind of the starting point.
Brandon Vogel's with us, managing editor, HailVarsity.com and magazine. So let's get into the quarterbacks, and you have Adrian and you have Luke McCaffrey. What do you envision? And we just don't know. We saw some glimpses of Mac against Maryland and against Iowa. What's the best you see him? Say Adrian does win the job, but you don't want Luke just standing there if you can use him, right? I mean, so what do you do, Vogues? I mean, put on your OC headset, brother. I know you got one by you.
Yeah, I've got one of those big gray Ertl headsets like Tom Osborne with the Dymo label on the side.
Well, and it had the stitching that said Osborne, that sticker, right? That said
Yep.
Osborne on the side.
Yep. Just print one of those off every 2 or 3 seasons. It feels like the old one worn out. Uh-huh. It becomes pretty tough. Like, I think there are ways, like, you can get a second quarterback involved. Ole Miss came out at its first drive of the season a couple of weeks ago and had 2 quarterbacks and went up tempo for a little bit. And they switched who would actually be taking the snap. By week 2, it was kind of like, okay, well, the quarterback that they chose is actually pretty good, so you'll just go with that. I think you can try that stuff if we assume, and this is where I'm at this point, and, Coach Lubick essentially said a week ago, if we played today, Adrian Martinez is the guy, and that doesn't come as a huge shock, I don't think, to anyone. But I was really impressed with Luke McCaffrey. I know we've had the chance as media to talk to him at times before, but I don't recall one that was kind of this press conference setting. It's a little bit strange to put the backup quarterback up there if you feel you have a starter. And he handled himself really well, which isn't a surprise. But I watched that and had to kind of like hold myself back to not make too much of it. But I was like, he seems like a really mature guy, and if you got into a spot where he had to be your quarterback for a while, I don't think anybody on that team is too scared of that. Now, I don't think that's the most likely scenario, but it's good to have that. For Adrian was asked directly about his kind of health and how he feels. But for me, that underscored, both. It was short periods of time, thankfully, but he hasn't played a complete season yet. He's injury luck has not been on his side. He's gotten nicked up a little bit, so it's good that it wasn't more serious. But hasn't played all 12 games. Can he go a full 9 this time? Until you see him do it, that question's kind of going to always be out there. So McCaffrey provides a pretty good deal of security, I think, based on what we've seen so far. And just preparing him to be that person is probably the greatest value overall for Nebraska this season.
Brandon Vogel's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Brandon, I think we're expecting to see Luke McCaffrey on the field this season in some way, shape, or form. And there was some talk in the spring of him getting some reps at wide receiver, and obviously COVID has gone and ruined that, or at least changed that significantly. But do you think that there are still some opportunities for Luke to see the field at receiver? Do you think we're specifically and exclusively going to see him at quarterback this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think it may be a handful of plays where Nebraska gets creative and may split him out. I mean, you think about, okay, if you put both guys back there and you motion one or the other out, like you can do some interesting things. It's just not something I see as a long-term part of the offense, of course. And even, back in the old days with Nebraska, it wouldn't have been that shocking to kind of give the second string quarterback, particularly if it felt like the race was close, to give them a series with the ones. That happened pretty often back in the option days. Now, in those days, Nebraska was often up 28-7 at the end of the first quarter too, and that's going to be pretty tough to do with where we last left the Huskers and just an all conference team schedule. So maybe there's a special package that is meant to highlight Luke. We saw Nebraska very briefly, 5 plays only, do that with kind of the I formation and some of the flex bone stuff that they did. So we know the coaching staff is at least willing to go there or has at least once before. So I could see something like that. But really, I think you're just better off going, that's our guy, and everyone on the team knows why. So it's kind of everyone else fills in their roles from there.
Vogues, a couple minutes here. Let's go to outside linebackers, and we need some guys to step up. If you ask Dawson, if you ask guys on that defense, how are you feeling about some of the tweaks and some of the names you're hearing that may get looks at outside linebacker? I look at Payne because of his athleticism. Henrich also mentioned he's inside, but they could think about looking outside. That's not a rush on anything, but does that say, okay, more the better, or, oh no, they're still thin?
I think it's a little bit of they're still thin, or at least they're still looking for the right fit there. And I think the second part of that is pretty easy to say after 2 seasons. Coach Frost really gave a pretty detailed position by position look at his team on his radio show this week, and really one of the things that jumped out to me about that was didn't pull a ton of punches. When it came to the outside linebackers, straight out said our outside linebacker group underperformed last year. Now you've got most of those guys back. We know the usual suspects and Caleb Tanner, who everyone's still kind of waiting for things to fully click into place. JoJo Doman made some splash plays, but kind of gets in his own way at times. And then Garrett Nelson, a little bit in that same category, I guess, but you expect that out of a true freshman. And the fact that he was able to play as much as he did, he might be kind of the real wild card here in terms of elevating that level of play. But then you start to look to some of those new guys. I'm really intrigued by Feldarius Payne as a potential fit there. Learning, kind of came in as a defensive lineman, but he's in that group where you could move him up or back. Moving him back, I think, might be a little bit better natural fit for his skill set. And then a guy like Nico Cooper is kind of your other big new addition there, both junior college guys, which can work out great at times. It feels like it's been a little bit though since Nebraska's truly had that JUCO fit where you're like, yes, we knew we had a direct need. We went out and directly addressed it, and it worked out perfectly. That's tough to do, but that's kind of where Nebraska's at outside linebacker at the moment.
Brandon Vogel. Vogues, thanks for a few minutes today, bud.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out on a Thursday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. More to get to from the Husker Media Session. Luke McCaffrey, thoughts on leadership, where he's at. Super Mario Verduzco, we'll hear from him. Gary Barnett's 20 minutes away. Jay Moore, great stuff from Brandon Vogel. Now an update, and Elijah Herbal wins the... we're going to give you the big teddy bear because you said, how about Oklahoma State coming to town for basketball with a little Donovan Williams? And Okie State will participate in the Elevate Hoops CBB, which is nice. This being reported by Jeff Borzillo. So you have that Nebraska bubble that will be going on November 29th through the 2nd. And it's got Oklahoma State, Illinois State, and Nevada. Coach Alford is at Nevada now. Cleveland State, Raleigh Massimino, no longer there, but that's where he ended after his time at Villanova. And LSU, right? So you got it's not a real close team, but I'll take me some Bayou Bengals here, which you got to love that setup with Northern Iowa, Nevada, and Oklahoma State, and you got your Big 12 team there, and LSU. So some quality Power 5 and some potentially nice Group of 5 squads.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's some real momentum to get this to an actual full 16-team lineup, which would be awesome. But Oklahoma State is a team that could be a dark horse in the Big 12 this year with Cade Cunningham.
Are they still banned from postseason?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's a one-year ban, right?
How's that appeal going is my question.
I have no idea. I don't follow Oklahoma State that much.
No, I'm just saying it sucks because you got Cunningham, likely your number 1 pick overall in the NBA draft, or at least a top 3 guy. And you've got Donovan that's coming back home.
I mean, this is going to be early season, so we're going to get to see these young guys for the Oklahoma State team kind of gel at the tournament that's going to be in Lincoln, and especially just with the talent of that roster. I think they're the number 1 team I'm watching, and even if there are more teams added, I'm going to be surprised if anyone else surpasses Oklahoma State in terms of most intriguing teams in the field. Yeah.
Let's get into some more Nebraska football thoughts here. When we talk concerns about Nebraska, what are your concerns for Nebraska? And Vogues hit on it before we ended the segment, is that outside linebacker spot. What do you get from JoJo? What do you get from Tanner? What do you get from Garrett Nelson? Do you get much production from guys you hope can come in and hit the ground running with JUCO backgrounds and a Nico Cooper in a Payne? I mean, there are bodies there. It's too bad that Buda Wright is dinged up with injury. So can Nebraska have a guy set the edge, get after the quarterback, make splash plays, not be a liability in coverage? We've all seen 3-4s work, and when they work, they're beautiful, right? But you got to have the personnel, and I think Nebraska has some really talented guys. We've seen moments early in the Colorado game a year ago, JoJo making big-time splash plays, him and Gifford, of course, at that outside backer spot. Can you get some production, and can you hit on a couple of JUCO kids to come in, understand what they're doing, play fast, play free, and be difference makers? Wide receiver, I mean, you had the injury to Cade last year that was problematic, right? There's a security and a rhythm in a relationship when you have a receiver that's go-to and sure-handed. Warner was that for Adrian his first year. You've got Wandale that's money, but who else can step up? And you did not have that again with some JUCO stuff last year. What you have this year is some guys that have been in the program. You're going to have a Warner back that he needs to stay healthy. You've got Wandale, but also the Omar Manning addition is nice. And some of the recruits you brought in that you think can hit the ground running too, that are really nice. But where do they What do they do from the practice field to game day at Big Ten level, which you've not had either? I mean, think about some of the playmakers you've had at receiver over the last 10, 15 years at Nebraska. Nate Swift, right, was big time. Peterson, Mo Purify, Zoe, Riley, DPE, and of course Westy, right? I mean, you've had some kick-ass wide receivers here at Nebraska, and you've had some receiver rooms better than others, okay? Do you have receivers who can go up and make plays and help your quarterback out, go out athlete the opposing team's coverage or defensive back? There's a lot of room for fun and letting it fling around in this offense. And I think of the wideouts Central Florida had, right, when they went undefeated. The guys are playing on Sundays. Nebraska's got some Sunday guys, right? We think on paper, body type, speed, size, athleticism. Can they get up to speed? And I think Lubick will do a great job of that. But it's still a process.
Yeah, you said it right with the Sunday guys that are on this roster just by body type. I mean, Omar Manning, Frost said it himself earlier this summer that he's never coached a guy that has a body type like Omar before. And then I look at Wan'Dale Robinson too, a little undersized, but that's kind of the direction the NFL's moving. Is undersized is all right in the NFL now, and with his speed, if he can improve the route running just a little bit, looks like a Sunday guy as well.
Well, just think of what you had with the tight end group that people are high on this year. And if you can get a number one receiver like a Stanley, and think of the success JD had in year one, when you got two guys plus some tight end work and a guy, again, this is back to 18, but a weapon like Mo, not dissimilar to Wan'Dale, where he can run it, he can catch it, and he can just hose you in space. A lot to do in this offense. Let's talk about Luke McCaffrey, because you saw a lot of him at wide receiver. Last year you saw some of him at quarterback. And, Luke's a guy that folks are excited for. And, when it comes to his areas of focus, there are a lot of things he focused on this offseason. Luke McCaffrey sat down with the media today.
There's a lot of areas that we're trying to improve throughout this offseason. It's been a funky one, but we've been able to really hone in on the details. It's fun now because we get to work on the application of those details and working those in game scenarios and different type of practice scenarios. And so definitely the application of details along with situation and contingency of offense, just knowing how much time's left, where we should be able to manage the clock and how we can run efficiently.
That's so big, right? I mean, you got a handful of games that Nebraska fans can recite. End of game situation in tight. Nebraska's played a lot of tight ball games, and a lot of them have not gone Nebraska's way. Some have, some haven't. But can you be better end of game, whether you're on defense or for sure you got the ball last? Can you go make a play and get the lead versus having back-to-back years where Iowa drives, makes a couple of third down or a fourth down play, and then they bang you with a field goal. That's a point of emphasis. Topic of camaraderie and just that relationship. Adrian, Luke McCaffrey, and some thoughts here from Luke on what Adrian's done for him as they've kind of bonded.
We learn a lot from each other. I'm so thankful to have a guy like him, a leader like him, who's ahead of me that I can look up to. And since the first day I've been on campus, he's welcomed me with open arms and kind of shown me the way of the road here. And so just the welcoming in and the constant process of us working together and figuring out different ways that we can help make this offense as efficient as possible. And so I'm very thankful for him and for the rest of our team for all of those.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, we'll hear from Gary Barnett. Thoughts on the Nebraska quarterback situation from Barney. 10 minutes away, Jay Moore will weigh in on the defense. Pressure and expectations for guys at positions of need and interest. So Blackshirt Jay in the 5 o'clock hour. 466-377-6800, 825-5865. Reminder about buckling up. There's over 15 100 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver. Driving drunk, buzzed, or high is never acceptable. Law enforcement officers are out working every day to stop it before any more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. And if you do drink, designate a sober driver or get a ride share situation nailed down. Get a ride. A DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So we have some news on college football. Baylor Athletics has suspended all football-related activities to allow for further evaluation of recent positive tests and completion of close contact tracing. The Tennessee Titans have been informed about rules prior to players' informal workouts. You've got a group of Titans that ended up working out at a high school. They contracted COVID there, and they may get smacked with a forfeit versus a reschedule because they went outside the instructions.
We should say allegedly, but they definitely did that. Did you see what? I
should say allegedly.
Yeah, because it's not confirmed yet, and the NFL hasn't completed their investigation. But
I've done my own confirmation.
I mean, did you see what? I think it was A.J. Brown, what he tweeted in response to the picture where he said, "You can't prove that's us." He said, "I plead the fifth," which is the guiltiest thing I've ever heard.
And I wish not to incriminate myself.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't at the high school with them, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That was definitely them.
But here's the thing, okay? And it's not like they're out clubbing. I would get ticked off if guys, and you look at Cam, right? Cam went out to dinner allegedly, right, with his buddy that's also breathing heavy on Mahomes the other night.
Stephon Gilmore.
Gilmore, thank you, right? And if you go out to dinner, you can still do that and do it safely, all right? Because it's happening. But when I'm looking at Tennessee, and you've got guys, you got to keep your strength up. You're supposed to lift and work out. They went to a high school. It's not like they went to a gym. I mean, like a 24-hour fitness deal. They weren't allowed in the facility. What are they supposed to do? Just stay home and then go get rolled without doing any weight training or working out? You know this as well as anybody, Elijah. Within the season, not only are you doing practice in school, but you're having to jerk with keeping your strength training up. I mean, you can't gear up and sell out and get huge for the season and not maintain it.
And also, when you look at these guys, I mean, when you play on Sunday, Monday's a rest day, Tuesday's a film day and a light walkthrough day, and then you're getting really 2 days of practice.
That's why you're professional.
I mean,
but it's
every minute
still
counts.
Not easy. So there's no right answer.
I mean, they're still going to get the book thrown at them.
Yeah.
They're going to probably forfeit a game. They're probably going to lose some draft picks.
Jeez.
Because the NFL's threatened that.
Yeah, but I guess I would look at different shades of violation. Why are you in violation? Oh, you wanted to go lift so you could be better on Sunday? Gary Barnett's coming up. Hour 2's on the way. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back with it, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Let's bring in the coach. Gary Barnett joins us. Coach, you're about to tee it off. Where are we playing today?
We're at Boulder Country Club. I'm playing with Bob Church. So we play a lot together. We beat each other up. So anyway, it's a good day. Nice day here in Boulder.
We have summer-like temps here in eastern Nebraska, and that's the plan this weekend, to watch the college football and swing the club. So hit them far and straight and make your putts. I know you will. Nebraska got a chance to meet with the media today, and quarterbacks coach Mario Verduzco and Scott Frost was speaking a little bit last night. And of course, Luke McCaffrey and Adrian Martinez. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have depth at quarterback, and this year's an odd year, Coach, because everyone's eligibility is on pause. But you've seen a little bit of Adrian, the McCaffrey family from your neck of the woods well, and you spent a lot of time tutoring quarterbacks, and Adrian's pretty matter-of-fact today, saying, whatever the coaches decide is what we'll do. So positive comments there from Adrian Martinez. But, talk to me a little bit here about how you handle quarterback competitions when you've had to deal with a guy, an incumbent, that has had a really good year and also had a tough year last year, but also an injured year. How do you view that lens as not only a head coach but a quarterback guy?
Well, I think first of all you gotta almost not think about the past. You can't you can't look back and say you had a tough year and any more than you can look back and say you had a great year the year before that. I think it starts all new. It's the only way it can happen if you're going to give both guys an equal chance. And I think quarterback coach, head coach, has got to see it the same way. And then I think you rely on your staff as well. I mean, sometimes we wear rose-colored glasses and we see things differently. And so I would always rely on what my staff saw, and not just me as a quarterback coach or as a head coach. And I think that's the only fair way to go about it. But it's one of those things. Sometimes the players know. The players have a feeling, and you've got to keep your ears open. You don't necessarily have to ask them, but you've got to keep your ears open as to what your team feels too, because that all figures in. When many times in these situations you come down and you can't make a choice, there isn't a clear choice. Both guys deserve to play, and you play them, and then everybody gets upset you played them both. But that's the way. That's what's fair to the kids, and sometimes you have to do that. I don't know whether that's the way it's going to be here, but I certainly think that sometimes that's the fair way to go about it.
You mentioned you got to keep your ears open. How long do you stick with a guy who may struggle, but you're thinking if you give him one more chance, one more drive, maybe that's the turning point where he snaps out of it? And I know Adrian's had some injury history prior to college, but also he's been dinged the last couple of years here at Nebraska too. And everyone loves the backup quarterback, and Luke's McCaffrey's fantastic. You got a really small but nice sample size of him. How about that decision to stick with a guy even though he's struggling and the rest of the world's clamoring for the bullpen?
Well, it just goes down to your gut feeling in that situation. It's you got to apply the golden rule, and I think that answers most of your questions. And so if it means you got to give him another drive and you hope it might snap him out of it, you do it, and then that's it. But, you got to think about how you want your son treated and how you would want to be treated in that situation, and that's what you go with.
I look at what Florida did where they had Chris Leak and Tim Tebow, and Tebow was a freshman, and he was kind of the red zone bulldozer, right, where he could either run it in or the old jump pass, right, to the tight end. Does that screw up an offense, or is it just stress a defense that much more, maybe having some red zone opportunity for a guy as athletic as McCaffrey?
This pandemic shows you how adjustable and how people can adapt quickly. So I don't think sometimes we give the kids enough credit that they can adapt to either one of those. They can adapt to just one guy. They can adapt to two. They can adapt to a goal line quarterback, and they can adapt, and one that doesn't. So I think it's what you and your staff decide is best, and then you go with it. You don't worry about anything else, but the kids will adjust for the most part. And and if it really violates them or it really causes them a problem, they're going to let you know. Mm-hmm. But kids can adjust much easier than we think they can.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, the coach, Colorado and Northwestern. They're talking Nebraska, some quarterbacks. And I look at the skill set with Luke McCaffrey, the way he can run, the way he can throw, and by all accounts, I mean, the pandemic's been hard on a lot of teams trying to get chemistry and camaraderie with the receiving core. But, Coach, I think you're right on the money with, the staff and some of the folks Coach Frost has familiarity with, not only on the field, but in that coach's staff room as well, that he can lean on and bounce things off of, and then make a call. It's a nice problem to have a healthy Adrian Martinez trying to cement that job that, it's mine. It's also nice to have options like a Luke McCaffrey and also a Logan Smothers. In today's era of quarterback transfer, you want as much time with kids as possible. That said, you recruit well, sometimes too well in the world of college football at quarterbacks. How would you handle this paused eligibility in 2020?
Oh, Chris, I don't think you let it bother you right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's looking too far down the road. I think you've got to, play out the season, and when things start to show how it's going to go, if you're going really well, then you know what, you don't even have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If things start to get tough, then you probably do have to start having a strategy. But I don't think you have to have a strategy right now. I think there's too many other things to think about. And I think that's for 6 weeks down the road.
Coach, a thought here. You watch a lot of Big 12 ball. As you assess Oklahoma, I really like their quarterback. He's put up enough points to win a couple of games. It's OU Texas this weekend. Texas is reeling a bit as well. Duggan's a kid from the region that has done well for TCU. What do you circle about Oklahoma? Why is their defense, not just this year, but in a lot of years, it's been kind of their Achilles heel? And how do you fix that? I know that's the $1 million question down in Norman.
Yeah, it really is. And, you can't say they haven't recruited well. I think sometimes the schemes, and I know that's what an old school coach would tell you, which is sort of what I am, but an old school coach would probably tell you, you just can't prepare for the run game when you're running what they do on offense, because that's all the defense sees in spring ball, which they didn't have. It's all at preseason camp, which isn't much, but that's what they see. I think that's a little bit of an issue, but they're just, the whole conference seems to be that way, and it's TCU is the only one that's been able to play some defense. I think right now, Okie State and Kansas State are playing good defense. And I tell you, I was impressed with Iowa State last week as well. So, I don't know if it's all that bad, but they certainly have offensive skill. And right now it looks like they have to outscore everybody. I actually like Texas in this game because I like the experience of Ellinger, and I like the fact Texas plays better when they're underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's too bad there's not a crowd. That's one of the great venues in college football.
Never been to that one. That's a bucket list ball game to check out. This would have been the year, except for the there's no crowd thing going on down at the state fair. No fair either. Going to switch gears and do some ball games here. I got a kick out of Lane Kiffin ribbing Coach Saban a little bit, and Coach Saban didn't really respond, but there was a little smirk to Nick behind the podium the other day. Bama's favored by 24. Ole Miss has had success, not recently, against Alabama, but there's familiarity for sure between Kiffin and Bama. Does Bama continue to steamroll? I like Ole Miss in their offense. I mean, Lane's got some weapons down there. They put up plenty of points.
Yeah, they do. But Alabama's got a great defense. And, I think in the end, I don't know, 24 might be too much. Saban isn't a guy necessarily who runs it up on you. And even though he and Lane go at each other a little bit, he's got to have a lot of respect for him.
Sure.
So I think 24 is about right, but I think the defense is it's just too good.
What do you make of the Pirate and Mississippi State kind of shocking the world down at LSU and then losing to Arkansas? Now they take on Kentucky, and Kentucky's hurting for a win right now.
Yeah, Kentucky's a good defensive team. I'll tell you, Arkansas scheme was really good. It was good to see the old Missouri coach go there and be able to do that to the Pirates. But I think KJ Costello is just so inconsistent. Mm-hmm. You know, he can have those days like he had, and then he can turn around and just be awful. And he was sort of that way last week. I think he's always been that way, and I think that's probably what got him beat out.
Well, I'll tell you what, he has gotten a lot of completions and a lot of yards and a lot of touchdown passes, but there's been a couple pick sixes in there too. I mean, momentum changing pick sixes. Tennessee and Georgia, and kind of waiting on the someone to emerge. There's really nice teams in the SEC East. Can anyone from the SEC East really scare Alabama this year? But Georgia's minus 12. A couple of Saban disciples go at it here this weekend.
Yeah, I think Tennessee's a really good team, but Georgia's defense is so good. But Tennessee played nearly a perfect game last week against Missouri, and no interceptions. They're moving the ball. They're playing decent defense, and I think Georgia's got they got this sort of folk hero in Stetson at quarterback, and they're feeling it. And I think that defense is really as good as there has been around in college football. And so I think probably Georgia wins this game, especially at Georgia. But Tennessee's a good team, and they're maybe one of the top 5 teams now in the league, and they've done a good job of building that team.
Couple more minutes. Gary Barnett's with us. We're doing some rapid-fire thoughts this weekend. Hail Varsity Radio. Florida at A&M. Gators are favored on the road at Kyle Field. Florida's got a stud tight end. They've got a quarterback. Defense has not been as strong as past years. And Jimbo and company, he's securing his gig, but folks want to see them compete against a have, and Florida's a highly ranked team. What happens down there in Aggieland?
Well, it was 6.5 when I saw the spread. I couldn't believe that. I think that Florida is much better than A&M. I mean, I don't know where A&M's even earned the credit that they have, but I think Florida's a much better team. I see them more than that.
So Florida easily a cover and a win on the road outright. How about North Carolina? Your old buddy Mac taking on Virginia Tech. That's at minus 5.
Chris, I haven't watched either one of those teams, and I don't know how to pick that game. Mm-hmm. I really don't. I haven't seen enough of either one of them to be able to have a feel for them. So, I'm going to let you choose that one.
Oh, well, I'm going to go with Mac and Carolina at home. Okay.
All right. I'm with you.
I like Carolina's quarterback. Coach, last thought here. You have a situation with Clemson where they get somebody that there's some hype around. The U comes in, Miami, Clemson's minus 14. That's dropped a little bit. And, Miami circled this game, but so is Clemson. And are you buying into Miami? Their quarterback's awful mobile, and that could help out against that Clemson pass rush.
Yeah, I'm buying Miami. I've seen them play 2 times for sure, and I like that football team. They're good defensively. I don't know how good Clemson is. I think they're good. I think they're really good. So I can't wait to watch this game. I think 14 is just about right. I think Clemson wins by more than 14. That they're legitimately 1 or 2. If they don't, then they're not deserving of that high a status, I think, in the rankings.
All right, the Battle of Purple, Kansas State at TCU. 8.5 TCU is favorite. This will be a whale of a ball game.
Hey, listen, both of these are good football teams, and you're right. It'll be a whale of a ball game. I tell you what, Kansas State's got it. They've got great chemistry, and they're hard to beat. Dugan, though, for TCU is the difference maker now that they have. I think 8's too many. But I think TCU wins.
Okay. Gary Barnett, Coach, have a great weekend. Hit him far and straight. Thanks for a few minutes.
All right, Chris. Thanks, bud.
Good to talk with Barney. Barney was just getting set to tee off. As he told you, the old Boulder Country Club. Love talking with him. Love going through some rapid picks. Danny Burke will be with us tomorrow with Burke's Best Bets. Pride of Chicago will join us, so we'll get some NFL. Of course, Bears tonight with Tom Brady invading Soldier Field. So line right now is -3 Tampa. So watch a little Sue and Levante tonight. See if Gronk can get in the end zone for some of his fantasy owners. We'll hear from Jay Moore. Thoughts on the defensive line. That's next on Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Blackshirt Husker NFLer and host of the More To It podcast, Jay Moore, at JayMoore44 on Twitter. You also see him on Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay Bird, you're enjoying a little sunshine. You ready for some football, man? Just 2 weeks away.
I am ready for football. It's just talking about it, this doesn't almost seem real yet. We got it because it's, we've watched everyone else start to play, but, you almost got to, pinch yourself and say, hey, we got football in 2 weeks, and we'll do our first Big Red Wrap-Up, the Tuesday of game week, so that'll be great. Get some more football breakdown stuff and looking into games and post-game reactions on my podcast, so things are heating up, which is definitely a good thing.
You can catch Jay's podcast, different platforms, hailvarsity.com for sure, the More To It podcast. Jay, I really enjoyed hearing from Ty Robinson. We ran some of his audio yesterday and got a bit of a cup of coffee. You remember that during your career as a longtime starter at Nebraska and a standout performer, all Big 12. What are your expectations for the D-line? What's a fair jump for some of these guys that have been around like a Stilley, but also some young pups like a Robinson that what we saw looked pretty good?
These guys are going to have to find consistency. Playing a few games, playing a few snaps here and there, that's one thing. All of a sudden you're called to do it, 30 to 40 times a game, and just being all mentally there and mentally prepared for every snap, every scheme that you see, make sure the game isn't moving too fast, controlling your breathing. That's just the biggest thing, too, is you get out there and you get so hyped up and things started moving pretty quick, and all of a sudden you're like, why am I so tired? It's only been a few plays. You got to get used to that as a young kid and a new guy playing. It's hard. Finally, this year, the strength of the offense is the offensive line. This year, the weakness of the defense might be the defensive line, just because you lose 3 really good players that are on NFL, or in camps, or in NFL camps, and are playing right now in Sundays. It's tough. So obviously you guys have like Ben Stilley, then you have Damian Daniels, and you have a guy like Casey Rogers who's been around. You have a guy like Ty Robinson that has shown flashes. You got like Keem Green who can step up and play. You have some other JUCO guy that's names are slipping me right now. You just haven't seen them. They didn't get a chance to go through spring ball. We didn't get a chance to see him in a spring game. So it's tough to totally judge, but it's going to be really interesting early on, especially when you're playing, one of the most dynamic offenses your very first game at Ohio State. So I think they're definitely uphill a little bit, but this is the third year these guys have been in the system, so they have a good grasp of what they need to do, what they need to know, how it's been taught, how it's been explained. So that should definitely help. But again, there's going to be some growing pains, I think, with this group, just because you only have a couple guys that have played some significant snaps, and all these other guys haven't done it. So I think you'll see some growing pains, but this is a fairly mature group, so you'd like to think they should be able to, be brought up and be brought along up to speed, rather quickly.
Jay Moore's with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer, Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, I want to go to the quarterbacks, and Adrian and Luke both spoke today, along with Super Mario, the quarterback coach. And I know he had the Gator thing going, but it looked like an ascot. It was straight out a Bond villain. He looked pretty cool sitting there on the Zoom.
Right.
I thought with, what do you do? What's doable? It's a luxury, right, to have a guy like Adrian. You've seen what he can do at a high level. We've also seen what McCaffrey has flashed as well. And how much do you use him on the field at the same time? You don't want one guy gathering dust if he can help the offense, but you're supposed to be better at receiver this year, right, with some new names, if they can pick things up. And what do you envision with this quarterback dynamic? And just to end this question, what's that fine line like? You got to be a great teammate, but you also don't want to lose your job. Competition will make things better, but it can also cause some pressure.
Yeah, no, pressure's good. this could be Adrian's best year because, freshman year plays, doesn't have, expectations aren't completely there, and he's just out there kind of, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just kind of doing his best. And then all of a sudden he, he gets all the praise and, and kind of fat and happy a little bit, to, everyone's potential Heisman winner, blah, 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 offensive struggles. He gets dinged up. Didn't really have to worry about a freshman coming in, pushing him at quarterback. Now that's not the case. I think he's been humbled a little bit. You have Luke McCaffrey, who's shown he's more than capable of playing that role. And it just definitely is a luxury, but you have to, I think that's what makes, the Alabamas and the LSUs and the Clemsons and, and Nebraska in the 90s. I mean, you had depth, and if you didn't live up to your expectations or what was, being told to you, Monday through Friday, you weren't going to be playing on Saturday. That guy was going to come, who that backup was going to come right behind you and play and take your spot. And most athletes have, egos, and they're competitive, and they want to make sure that's not going to happen. And it doesn't, it's not about being a good teammate. I mean, sometimes, your best friends can challenge you the most, and sometimes maybe you don't even like the guy, but you can still respect him, and then that makes you want to perform better because you don't care for a person. You sure as hell don't want him taking your job first and foremost. So, it's an interesting dynamic, but I think it's going to be the best for Adrian to push him and have Luke being there. I know obviously from his family background, they're all competitive. And then you can have a guy like you, Luke, you can utilize him in many different ways and packages and, just put him on the field, as a decoy situation. Obviously you see two quarterbacks in the field. That's obviously going to alert the defense to some sort. And, and then you can start playing a little mind games here and there, show some stuff, put Luke in motion here and there. And, obviously he can run it, and then he can obviously throw it. We've seen him, come in motion and make some throws and make some really good throws. So you can utilize however you want. It's definitely a luxury. And, listen, I mean, the competition is the best. That's what you want. Let's be honest. That's probably, T. Frazier was a phenomenal talent and competitor, but don't think he wasn't worried about Brooke, coming there and taking his job. And that's what happened. That probably helped him become one of the best quarterbacks in college football history. So it's a great thing. And Nebraska hasn't had it in a while. You look back at all the starting quarterbacks from Riley or from Bo's era and Riley's era. I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot of people pushing Taylor and Tommy Armstrong and so on and so forth. So this is a very good situation for Nebraska football.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio at JMoore44. Jay, get you out of here on this. Thought on Bill O'Brien and the reporting has been that there was a blow-up between him and J.J. Watt. J.J. kind of went high road and was respectful in speaking what little he did about Bill O'Brien. Same with Deshaun Watkins. Those are the two leaders on that Texans team. And those guys would have helped make the decision, or at least probably asked about it. I think Bill O'Brien's a hell of a coach. I know that hasn't shown this year. In Houston, he also had the GM hat on, and there were a lot of moves that were questioned. Does he still get a look in the NFL? I know he had a blow-up early in his career with Brady. I remember that scene on the sideline. Does he go back to college because of how successful and obviously one of the worst situations at Penn State? What's your take on what happened down in Houston?
Yeah, very, very strange. I mean, this is a guy who, they almost beat the Chiefs. I mean, they were kicking the crap out of the Chiefs last year in the playoffs, and they win that game, and and who knows what could happen. They could have been easily playing the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's funny in that business. Things can happen so quickly. The egos and the people that are involved in there, they just don't have the patience for it, or even just I'm trying to think of a better phrase or term, but just the guts to kind of deal with something. I think Bill's a guy that calls it how he sees it, and sometimes in that business, a lot of people sugarcoat stuff, and they want to say things that, that people want to hear, and instead of things that they need to hear. And a lot of people in that business don't like that because, hey, I'm in the NFL. Hey, I've done this. Hey, I've been a part of that. So you can't tell me anything. And if you do, you're out of here. So that's not a team you want to work for. And yeah, I mean, let's be honest, that the old DeAndre Hopkins trade situation, that wasn't a great look. I mean, you start 0-4. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the league in Deshaun Watson, and it's a very strange. But he's such a good football coach. He's going to get another look, whether it's in the NFL or whether it's in college. I would think he'd probably want to stay in the NFL. I think once you kind of are there and you kind of get a taste of it, it's kind of hard to backtrack. Although Nick Saban's proven otherwise, but I think he's gonna land on his feet. I mean, you probably won't see him do much for the rest of the year. He'll take that Texans money that he's still owed and sit on it for a little bit, and then see what's the best situation for him. He can't really. I'm sure he's not in a huge rush, but there's gonna be a lot of opportunities for him. I mean, hell, it's like on average, like two NFL coaches are canned every year. So, and he's one of the best guys to do it. I mean, maybe the GM thing isn't in the right situation for him, but he's going to land on his feet. He's too good a football coach not to find another job, either next year or hell even this year.
About 30 seconds here, but with J.J. Watt, I don't know J.J. at all. He seems pretty normal or down to earth or blue collar. That said, you probably experienced just being in locker rooms how star players are treated typically, not only by ownership, but you got to kind of tiptoe in some cases, don't you, around those guys?
Yeah, you do. I mean, yeah, you have to pick your battles, and you know which battles you can take on, and which ones you gotta get out of, or how you got to handle yourself. Yeah. So it's strange. I mean, JJ's been there, his whole career. He's been a leader. He's played really, really good football, and it's a tough situation because you want to be able to speak your mind and do things. But I'm guessing he wasn't trying to get a guy fired by any means. Mm-hmm. But sometimes things, that's the way the cookie crumbles. And he's a very respected. I mean, he's one of the best guys to play. 3 technique, 5 technique. I mean, he can play every position across the board in the NFL. So he's definitely earned a spot to speak his mind. But again, yeah, it's tough to. It's a tricky. That business is very, very tricky depending on what organization you're in and how the water falls from the top. So it must be kind of a messy situation down there in Houston.
Jay Moore, Bird, have a good weekend, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Smitty.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Wanted that Thursday, it's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Good stuff from Jay Moore, Gary Barnett, and plenty of Nebraska reaction with Luke McCaffrey and Adrian Martinez the first couple hours. Brandon Vogel was with us a little more than an hour and a half ago. Dan tweets in that he's putting money down that Bill O'Brien ends up on Saban's staff as a analyst. I think Bill O'Brien could go kill it in college. I'd put money out, not that USC's looking to hire, but I'd hire him in a second. Because of how great he did at Penn State. I think he'll get another crack at the NFL.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because he's won.
I mean, he built that Texans program before demolishing himself, but
there's always that power struggle with GMs and the old Bill Parcells. If you're going to cook the dinner, you got to be able to buy the groceries. And I believe that. And I think Bill O'Brien, Jay nailed it. That he's kind of a no-nonsense, no BS, and I'd like more context to the verbal blow-up between him and Watt. I mean, Watt's he's missed 32 games the last couple, 3-4 years. Now, peak J.J. Watt's insane, where he's a 3 or 5 technique that's getting 80 tackles a season and between 17 and 20 sacks. But he's not that anymore, and there's no Clowney. And I think with Hopkins and I don't dislike David Johnson. I think he's good, and he's back to healthy David Johnson. But if I'm Watson, to me it's a minor miracle that they got him to as long of as an extension as they did. And Watson was complimentary, and Watt was like not kicking dirt on his grave at all. He's just like, look, dude, it wasn't working, and I think they lost he lost the team after the Pittsburgh loss because he got in JJ's face. That's how I'm looking at it.
And I just think he set the team up for failure whenever he traded away his best player. That's my look on it. And I saw this tweet earlier this week, which I laughed at, and it said, Bill Belichick's legacy has only been solidified to me by how bad his coaching tree has been, because that man won a Super Bowl with Matt Patricia and Bill O'Brien on his staff.
I don't think they're bad.
It was just a thing of the moment of let's take a dump on Bill O'Brien. But.
Sure. No, I know. Well put. That's Elijah Herbal. Let's talk leadership and, what type of leader are you? Question was posed to Luke McCaffrey. We'll hear from Luke before we get into Mario Verduzco.
Oh, there's a lot of qualities that make a good leader. I think there's some leaders who are great by example. There's some who are very vocal and outgoing. And at the end of the day, a leader has 2 jobs. They have the job to accomplish the mission, and they have the job to rally the troops around you. That's something, when the program comes in every year, they really hone in on those ideas. And so any way that somebody can get those 2 missions done is how we can be a leader. And so it's different in every moment. So I don't know if that's something that can be narrowed down to somebody specific.
Well thought out by Luke McCaffrey. A little bit more on the leadership topic from Luke McCaffrey before we get to Mario. But, your actions will get teammates to buy in, okay? Are you going to go perform? Are you reliable? Are you trustworthy? Are you doing everything to make yourself better? More from Luke McCaffrey.
One of the major things is to do your job and not try and do more than that. And so if a leader comes in every day and works hard and continues to do all the right things, that's probably the first step to be a leader. And then from there, you can learn to help others around you. But it's different in every moment. I'm still a young guy on this team, learning when to be vocal and when to maybe let somebody else take the reins. And so it changes every day and in every situation. But personally, I don't know if I can narrow that down to anything specific.
So here's Mario Verduzco. He was asked about a 2-quarterback system. What's the plan? What's talked about? Where can you go with this luxury of Adrian and Luke? And can you use them both? Here's Super Mario.
One sec.
Oh, you're fine.
I lost it. I had it, and then I lost it.
Are we ready? Do you have him cussing at all?
No.
You didn't edit any? Do we have him talking about tough-ass quarterbacks?
Yes, we do have that.
Okay. But I want to hear about the
There it is. For some reason, all the folders went away.
Well, there's only 1,000 cuts today. Don't worry about it. Here's Mario Verduzco.
Wait, you say cut 4?
Yes.
That can create stress for a defense, particularly when both of the young guys are capable of running it and throwing it, How much of that, scheme-wise, Coach Frost wants to do, that would be best a question for him. But I certainly think when you have that availability, it certainly helps you. It did help the Browns, even though it wasn't a quarterback throwing the ball to our guy in the end zone. But, yeah, it is pretty dangerous.
Mario was talking about Landry to OBJ on the old throwback. But when it comes to simplifying offense here, let's go to cut 6. Mario, things are getting streamlined here. And it's a nice kind of a triangle setup. You got Frost, the play caller, of course, but you got Lubick, the OC, and Mario, all 3 of them kind of in concert together.
It's more simple in a variety of ways in terms of where you might start your progression and so on and so forth with regards to that. So the other piece of the puzzle is Coach Lubes has done a great job figuring out the base plays and even some of the third down situation offense, pass offense stuff that we've been able to rehearse over and over and over and over. So at least for us right now, in terms of what we've been going through, it's been really good. How it's going to translate into competition, we're going to find out. But I feel real good about it right now.
Got a lot of talent at quarterback. Logan Smothers was asked about, and he's on pause like everybody else. You had a good spacing set up with the quarterback room. That's been thrown into a bit of a good problem, right, when you got 3 talented players, but some high praise on where Logan Smothers has progressed.
Very similar to how when Luke came in. His issue particularly was he just didn't get very many reps in spring, right? So we've done as good a job as we possibly can getting him caught up with the experience part of it. But like Luke, he had some things that he needed to get cleaned up. And because of the delay, I think in a kind of a weird, goofy-ass way, he's probably further ahead than he normally would be. Excuse my French.
You keep speaking French, Super Mario. It's all right with me. Can we get into COVID mindset? This was pretty powerful by Coach Verduzco. He always thought they were going to play ball.
From my own personal standpoint, I just looked at it that we're playing. And I worked and I prepared as if we were going to play. I told the quarterbacks to think of it that way. That way, yep, whatever happens, happens. If they delay us, they delay us. But, it gets to be a kind of a pain in the ass, when you get delayed over and over. But to be able to fight that's how I dealt with it, Sean. To be honest, we're going to play.
There we go. Coach Lube's pain in the ass, and we'll get his take on COVID before we say goodbye.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, we're going to have a steak and a beer bet tonight, you and me, Elijah.
This Tampa Bay game?
Tampa. Dude, is Evans playing or not?
I have heard yes within the past 15 minutes.
So do I bench Thielen or Tyreek Hill for Evans? I benched Thielen, and
he went off last week.
He did. But Evans went off.
I also have Thielen.
But I have Tyreek Hill. I have crap for running backs now.
I will start Thielen because
I'm starting Gronk. That's my only choice at tight end.
The Seahawks defense is depleted. In the secondary especially. Mm-hmm. So I'm starting Thielen. Because that game's also probably going to be a shootout.
And let's be honest, Oakland's secondary is brutal. Excuse me, Vegas's secondary is brutal.
Yes, another one for the swear jar.
Yeah.
Man, I would keep Mike Evans benched.
Yep.
Coming off an injury on a Thursday night
It's an
game.
ankle, right? Short week. And so, Gronk's going to get 75 targets tonight. And he'll do his thing. Okay, last thought from Mario, and this was priceless. I can see Mario with the shades on and the Clorox wipes and just hosing down that quarterback room.
When we got back to the quarterback room, I put names on each of their chairs so that they were sitting in the same chair all the time, making sure they were spread out. When I get here in the morning, I get those, I don't know, what are they, Clorox disinfectant towels, whatever the hell they are. So I go in every morning and I wipe down their chairs, the back of the chair, where they're sitting, the keyboard, and all of that sort of stuff to make certain that we're as self-contained in this bubble and clean as possible. You certainly don't want to lose your quarterbacks, nor any person on the team for that matter, but you certainly are cautious about that and making certain you're doing everything to keep those cats healthy.
Whatever the hell they are. Those Clorox wipes. So that was gorgeous from Super Mario Verduzco today. Tomorrow we'll have Parker Gabriel with us. Dean Blevins, as he's headed down to the Red River Shootout, Texas, Oklahoma, the Pride of Fairbury, Bill Dolman. And Danny Burke will join us for Burke's Best Bets. We will sneak in a lot of Ryan Held. We spent time talking about quarterbacks and defense and kind of this muted mood for Nebraska. They're going to let their play on the field be their volume level versus maybe talk and hype the last 2 years. It's been our thoughts today. But a lot from Ryan Held, and great running backs coach for Nebraska. A lot of talent in that room and some names that you've been waiting on. And you got a glimpse of last year, but we'll hear on Ronald Tompkins. So the line is -3 Tampa right now. We'll see if that goes down here a little bit before kickoff. A lot of our affiliates here on Hail Varsity will have Westwood One coverage coming up a little bit after 7 o'clock with Tampa and Chicago. Who do you want? Steak and a beer.
I think Vegas is pretty smart, so I'm going to take Tampa.
Okay.
And I'm going to take Tampa 28, Chicago 24.
You think it'll be close?
I think it'll be close.
I don't like Chicago's quarterback situation. Chicago doesn't like Chicago's quarterback. All right, we'll shake on it, but I need 7 points.
Fine.
All right.
I can do that.
Give me the Bears in 7. Talk to you tomorrow at 4 on Hail Varsity. Thanks.